Welcome to the Navigating Magick podcast, where we explore the interplay between intuition, spiritual health, and your superconscious through conversations, interviews, and storytelling. Natasha teaches you how to generate change through your attention to energies, truths, and processes that are invisible to others. Together, we will explore the interplay between alchemy, astrology, and theurgy. I'm your host, Natasha Andreo. Hello, everybody, and I'm so glad you're here today because my next guest, Anna Bousquet, happens to be a talismanic altar art creator and an alchemist on all levels. So welcome, Anna. It's so lovely to meet you.
Hi, Natasha. Thank you so much for having me.
What drew me to asking you to be a guest on my podcast was your art, because there are artists out there and then there are artists out there. And so I'm really so keen to hear about your story in terms of how you got your art to come out into the world. And I know you've had some amazing successes over the last year that I'm sure there has been a journey to get to.
Oh, yeah, there's certainly been a journey. Well, yeah, when I started dabbling in art, really, it's been my whole life, but in a more meaningful way, as a teenager. And I actually was developing a really strong relationship with nature. And there were certain trees and landscapes and rivers and lakes that were really really impactful in shaping me into who I was becoming. And I just felt a lot of safety and security in these spaces. And I felt like I felt like I really belonged with these elements. And so I actually started creating art that reflected this connection that I was feeling. That was a very primal connection that I wasn't really observing my peers or people around me really having. It felt very unique and just really special. And so, yeah, I would, go to the forest and have an incredible experience that just touched me on a spiritual level, and then I'd go home and draw it.
That's
And,
that is so thought-provoking, because too many, I think, well, for me at least, I wish I had more time to do that. And so it just seems like you've been able to harness this from a very early age. And so it's just now become a part of your nature.
exactly, that is exactly right. When you're a teenager, you actually have a lot of time, even though you're exhausted from school and you're just like, going crazy with hormones and everything. Um, Yeah, I found it to be one of the most important things in my life was to cultivate this relationship and see all the magic that it was just waiting to share with me. And it really just became even more meaningful as I brought it into my artistic work. And so, my paintings started to kind of personify nature in a way, or I would kind of be blending human qualities with natural qualities, creating like a woman made out of a tree, or like a mountain range made out of just like bodies just overlapping with each other. And yeah, so I kind of started there, and then I started getting really into astrology. So like this really meaningful relationship that I was having with the earth below was starting to become reflected in the heavens above. And then, it just started to get this really magical quality to it. And I started studying planetary magic, and that's kind of when it all just blew up.
That's
into like
interesting.
really talismanic.
I'm so curious. Did you invoke any particular planet for help? Like, did you turn to Mercury or Saturn? I'd love to hear
I
about
definitely did. Yeah. Well, when I created my altar card deck, Celestial Influence, I was working personally with all of these archetypes. So, I remember the first card I did was the Aries card, and I started drawing it on the full moon in Aries. And I also have my moon in Aries. So it's kind of this like, and it was full when I was born. So it's kind of this like really rich talismanic quality to the piece. And it just kind of kept on going from there. And I really got to know all of those archetypes so deeply because of the artwork that I was creating for them in honor of them. And yeah, just working with their symbols and just really attuning to the qualities of them that lived within myself in my own psyche and my own body. And that was really an incredible journey of like self-discovery for me, really, creating that altar card deck. And that's kind of how all of my work has become since then.
That's amazing because I think the unfolding happens, it's very layered, you could say. And you never
Mhm.
go in thinking this is what it's going to look like. You have obviously an idea, but it seems like you become the conduit for channeling the energies and the frequencies, and then your finished work becomes the absolute symbol for the personified vision that you had.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime that I got stuck, because, like you get writer's block, you also get stuck as an visual artist. But I'd go to the forest and I would invoke that archetype that I was working with and just ask them, like, how do you want to be represented by me, And I'd either get like a sign, like a certain bird would come into my view, or just like the wind would pick up, or, there's just like something would happen and I'd get a vision and I'd go home and just like get that vision down on paper.
Amazing.
So magical. Yeah.
It really is. So I'm curious, would you consider yourself like sensitive to the energies around you? Seeming that you've attuned yourself to nature so much and it's so natural to you, like how do you navigate some of the external influences that aren't necessarily in your control?
Yeah, I definitely identify as a highly sensitive person, just like down to my body. Like my body's incredibly sensitive to, external forces. But really, I think over the years, I've developed a greater capacity, is what it is. I've developed a capacity to hold things, external things that come into my sphere, just with more grace and patience and a desire to understand it more.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, I think I used to operate from a place of just judgment a lot, like things were very black and white, like good or bad. And now things are more on a spectrum of what I am like willing to accommodate in my world and what I am um, just willing to like hold space for in order to understand it better. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. From what you're saying, it seems like you become a little bit more detached from like the realities at play because you understand that life, there's this bigger, I don't want to just call it a journey, but there's a bigger force at play. And when we zoom
Mm,
out, that's where the magic is.
absolutely. And I love that metaphor so much of zooming out and seeing the bigger picture because I do feel like yes, we have a lot of free will, and we also are we're dancing with forces that are outside of our control.
Mm.
And I like to honor those forces, even if, they might feel negative to me. They're there for a reason, and they often are helping us to uncover some kind of medicine or truth within ourselves that wouldn't have been exposed otherwise.
Of course. And I think we've like as a society, like I know you're in the States and I'm in Australia, but we can say that like in the Western world, especially, we're being taught from a very early age to just to follow certain structures and systems because that's the way it is. But the more we become attuned to, number one, our own spirit, our own soul, and then attuning our essence with nature, you learn that there's a big disparity between following certain systems and structures and then following your own way. So like I'm very curious from a very early age, that like your schooling experience, like being a natural born artist, for instance, did you find school to be a bit of a struggle?
School was my biggest life struggle. I mean, um, it all went uphill from school, I was an incredibly depressed teenager, which is understandable, I mean, for me, it's like almost hard to imagine how kids can't or like aren't depressed in that kind of environment that is so like detached from their like subjective experience
Mm.
and detached from their bodies, their needs, their desires, real connection, yeah, I always just felt like a number when I was in school, and it was just heartbreaking to me every day.
I know exactly what you mean. Like I'm a high school teacher. Well, I was a high school teacher. I
Oh,
could no longer stay in something that didn't resonate with my values and my truth. And so it's one of the things that I feel really strongly about. And I have a feeling in the next few years, given what we know about the some of the planetary influences coming up, that a lot of artists, creators, musicians, that their place in school as it is now, it's going to change. And it's my hope and vision that it will evolve over the next few years because the current system is broken and we can no longer sustain it because the
yeah.
numbers, the statistics speak for themselves. And it's so unfortunate that I guess our generation was a part of that. But the only way out of it is to get through it.
Absolutely. And we can learn from those experiences. Like I'm sure that you as a high school teacher were not like a lot of the teachers that you had in high school, right? You're probably much more attuned to each of your students' needs and their gifts and wanting to help them to evolve those gifts. And that just like wasn't my experience, except for maybe a couple of teachers in my whole school experience. Um, but yeah, in terms of the system kind of crumbling, astrologically, that's exactly what's happening, especially with Pluto moving into Aquarius. There's like a whole new era that's coming, and it's all about developing more humanity, right, in our everyday life. How can we be more human and support each other's unique humanity and just develop systems that are actually sustainable and aren't just tied to this linear trajectory um, trajectory.
Of course.
So
Yeah. What I love about like what you said earlier was, you mentioned school wasn't necessarily, one of the best things. You did learn from it, but you mentioned something specifically where you said, my life went uphill after school. So it's almost like you
Mhm.
became this beautiful, you blossomed obviously in terms of your creative spirit, allowing to feel like you can be more you instead of feeling like that so-called number.
Absolutely. It was like I felt like a number, but I also felt like the biggest outcast. That was just weird, compared to everybody around me. And it's not that I didn't have friends, it was just that I was just operating on a completely different level than everybody else. And so obviously that creates feelings of alienation too. And that's heartbreaking. Like nobody wants to feel like an exile, but that's kind of how it goes when you're operating on that different level. And that's the other thing about stepping into this new Aquarian age, actually, is that I think that we all are developing more of an understanding of our own inner exiles and how we can honor them and honor the inner exile of people around us, without shaming and without judging so hard. Yeah, there's just going to be much more space for understanding people's nuances and, the little details that make them into the beautiful, unique people that they are.
Of course. And it almost seems like if you don't get, if you're not keeping up with this new frequency, with this new way of moving forward, you're going to not only just get left behind, but you're going to feel the ramifications of it hard and fast. Pluto doesn't
Mhm.
muck around.
Yeah. Yeah. I can definitely see the first several years of this new era. Um, I can see a lot of people that are in power, for example, grasping for their power really, really strongly. And there's going to be some destruction that comes with this new age we're stepping into. And that's kind of the role of Pluto, is to alchemize.
Yeah. I think
Right.
I know I'm personally looking forward to this. I've had Pluto in the fourth house for the last 15 years, so I'm ready for some movement there.
Yeah, you are. Oh, yeah.
Have
Mhm.
you had Pluto impact any of your personal planets in the last few years?
Well, the last few years, not necessarily. I've really just got a transpersonal planet in Capricorn, and I don't feel like that connection is super strong on a personal level. And it's going to be similar this year, actually, but Pluto's moving into my third house in Aquarius of, communication. And I already feel the effects of that. I feel this huge opening, actually, in my ability to communicate my thoughts and feelings and ideas with the world,
Yeah.
which is really excellent. And yeah, this podcast is actually a perfect example of that.
Well, I'm so
I've
glad
been on
to
podcasts before, but yeah.
be on the brink of that. So that means you're a Sag rising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can really see with your art, I guess it's obviously art is admirable. You admire it and you appreciate it, and it's very much subjective. But what I have noticed about like the art that I've seen through your Instagram page, for instance, and your emails, that you're, I guess it's interesting. You're there to teach along with presenting art.
Yeah, it's such an important thing to me, actually. I'm as much a visual artist as I am a writer. And I just feel like they are inextricably linked in my mind. They have to go together. Like the images are obviously incredibly powerful and can be interpreted in any way, which is beautiful. And I also like to just add in, more of the symbolic breakdown and the experience of creating them and what I was moving through while creating them, because that's what makes them talismanic. And I think it helps people relate to them even more. I think that we're all we're all very connected in this web, and what I'm experiencing, I just feel like it can be, it's shared by many other people, even if it doesn't look exactly the same, general themes are being shared.
So fascinating. Talk to me about your journey in terms of the big breakthrough that you had with getting your art, because obviously, like I've been learning alchemy for the last 2 years, and I can't remember who said it, but I'll have to think of it, but they basically said that all art is useless. And at an initial take, like you can see your reaction, it's like, what do you mean that's useless? Obviously, there's a purpose to it. But when you're creating your art, you're not creating it thinking, I'm going to do X, Y, Z with it, and this is what's going to happen. And you're not creating the journey that the art will go on. You're creating the art because, like I said earlier, like you become the conduit, and then the energies start to speak through you, and then your creativity brings that to life when you're in the moment. But
Sure.
I really would love to hear about, when did you, I guess, step from creating art for yourself to creating art for the world?
Yes, great question. That actually all started with my Celestial Influence deck. Before that, I was sharing what I was creating on social media and things. But it wasn't until I started doing planetary magic that, I mean, I personally wanted visuals on my altar while I was, in ritual, and to honor certain transits and aspects that were happening that were influencing me in my life. But I created this huge body of work that was so powerful that I felt like it wasn't mine at all. It was like it belonged to the world, and belonged to like all of the planetary magicians in the world, like it just needed to be out there. And so I just took the steps necessary. But it wasn't until like halfway through the creation process of that deck that I realized that it needed to be more widely shared.
Mm.
So it did start off for me, but it ended like not for me at all.
That's beautiful. And what sort of response have you had from, whether it be people you know, or even like strangers, like strangers like me, responding to your art? How does that feel? From because you seem to be very humble in your manner. You're very like I'm gonna say you're very feminine and receptive. So how did it feel to, I guess, claim that identity of being an artist, a creator, and to own that titleship?
Yeah, it was definitely a little journey for me. It was out of my comfort zone, let's say, to actually kind of be almost in the spotlight. Having my work in a lot of different stores all around the Northwest, and other places in the country too, and being recognized actually out and about. That's kind of a crazy one for me. um, but it, for whatever reason, for me, it just feels also completely natural. It's a great paradox. It is initially very uncomfortable. Like, who am I to be like, in people's spheres, and but also it's like the work that I'm creating really actually kind of needs me to get it out into the world. And so it's almost like I'm a servant of my work.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
of course. It does become like that, and the work and the energies you start to see the synchronicities, I could say, you could say, through the works that you're creating, like you creating, like as you said earlier, your first card. being, you know, the Aries on the full moon, and then you have an Aries moon. You're born under the full moon. Like I can probably guarantee that you probably didn't time it like that per se.
Yeah, no, I really didn't. I didn't even think about the fact that I had an Aries moon in my chart. It was just kind of like, hey, it's the full moon in Aries. I might as well like make a piece to honor this time. And then all of a sudden it's like this magical talisman. Yeah.
Which of your cards is your favorite, and why? You know, it's like a mother having a favorite child or your favorite pet. You're not supposed to, but
Yeah. Well, I think that my favorite, I have a couple. My favorite of the zodiac, signs is the Libra card, and I am a Libra. But I think it's my favorite because I wove in some like Egyptian myth into it, which is the goddess Maat with her scales and the heart on one side and the feather on the other side. Something about that image just like really hits home for me. And I am fascinated with Egyptian mythology and thoughts about the afterlife and what that means. And yeah, something about that card was very, it's sensual too. This figure is wearing like a red robe and she's kneeling before an altar with this like scale coming out of her head. It's like she's like reaching the heavens, yeah. Yeah, something about that card just really feels epic to me. But I also really love the sun card. And this actually circles back to when I was a teenager. There was this specific oak tree that I would go visit every day at sunset, and I'd climb her all the way up to like her center. And she's, probably like a 400-year-old tree or older, humongous. And and so I really associated this tree with the sun because I would be there every night at sunset, and these beautiful pink rays were just like blasting me in this tree. And um yeah, I mean, those were some of the most magical moments I've ever had. And it was, very closely related to this solar component within myself. And yeah, that image is just so, it's like archetypally beautiful. It just hits home somewhere in you. And I think in everybody who ever comes into contact with it is like kind of struck by its power. And it's just incredibly fitting with the sun being the source of all creation, all power, all inspiration, really. So,
as you're speaking, I can just imagine you like do you teach art to young children especially? I can see you doing that.
I taught my stepdaughter Tara art. We used to make art together all the time. Now she's like a preteen and doesn't really want anything to do with me, but there was a time that we were creating art every day together, and she's an incredible artist. She makes some incredible stuff. She has an easel in her room, and she's just painting regularly, and it just touches me so much.
Because as you're talking, like you're bringing your literal experience, your physical experience in nature, and then you're bringing that manifestation through your creativity. And I can see such a need in this world to inspire more people to get out there. And what I love is that you're using your experience to energetically bring that to life. Like there's something
Mhm.
so calming, so soothing, yet inviting about that experience in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I have visions of teaching art more, and I'm stepping into a new phase of my business, which is teaching classes, not necessarily art classes, but all of these classes have a very creative component to them to kind of tap into that inner creator that lives within all of us. And I'm incredibly excited about that. That feels like all of the elements um, that have really touched me in my life. I'm able to kind of um, bridge them together and, you know, be of service in that way. And it feels just really, really good.
It's beautiful because you're really living that Sagittarius, philosophical teacher role. You're bringing that to life, and that's really inspiring. And to see that come to life for you, it's really admirable. So amazing. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Good things to come.
Yeah, it feels really, really good. Actually, I've never thought of myself as a teacher before, and it's still a little bit uncomfortable. You know, it's probably on par with how it felt kind of becoming more popular as an artist. But yeah, there's something there that I need to explore. It's like I'm getting several signs from the universe that I need to just start teaching what I know and help other people discover really what they already know. To just add more richness and meaning to their lives.
Yeah. And I think we've all experienced those nudges, and they keep getting louder and louder until
Yeah.
eventually something really happens that you're almost forced into this new situation. And it is expansive and scary and exciting at the same time.
Hmm. Yes, all of those things for sure.
So good. I've started the new year with a new ritual on my podcast where I ask the previous guest to ask some questions for the new guest, not knowing
Whoa.
who they'll be. So I'd love to ask you this was the question from Christina Hollinger, who's a feng shui expert, and she asked to ask you where your north node is and where is your Venus sign. So me.
Yeah, actually, they are both in the sign of Scorpio in my 12th house.
Beautiful. Wow.
And Jupiter is actually conjunct Venus there. So there's a lot of action in Scorpio in my 12th house. And yeah, I feel that very, very strongly. I have felt that strongly throughout my life.
I've also got a 12th house stellium, so I understand when you mentioned some of the things you experienced during high school. I think I resonate with that. And you could say even as an adult, it can be difficult to manage certain situations and relationships that you're forced to engage with from a 12th
Mm,
house perspective.
absolutely. I really value my alone time, you know, like almost more than anything.
Yeah.
um, Yeah, I mean, that's really where the magic happens for me is when I'm able to be kind of clear of other people's energy and just presence. And I'm able to kind of tap into something a little deeper within myself.
Mm.
Yeah, that's where the magic happens for sure.
Of course. And what's interesting about that is, while I'm not coming from a place of judgment, but sitting on the phone or watching a TV show or watching a movie, whilst you may be alone, you're not necessarily alone, because you're still
Mm.
ingesting and digesting and receiving information. But it's when you're truly alone, away from technology, in your own space, I think that's where the magic happens.
Yes, yes, on point for sure.
So on that note, I would love, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but I'm pretty sure you're very capable in creating a question. Can you please ask a question for my next guest, not knowing who they'll be?
Okay, let's see. Um, I guess maybe I'd ask, what is your favorite symbol right now, and what does it mean to you?
That's a really good question. I love that. That's a very insightful one. It can go either way. It's
That's
interesting.
my inner artist coming out.
Um, I was supposed to interview my husband before you, but we've had to rearrange our schedule. And so if I were to ask him that question, he's a drummer. And so if I were to ask him which symbol is his favorite, he's probably going to be very literal.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
That would be
You
very
can be literal. Just go for it,
of course.
wherever the question takes you.
Good. Now, I'd love to hear for some of our listeners, what works do you have happening at the moment? Where can they find you? Where to from here for your creative endeavor?
Yeah, right. I am currently making a new altar card deck, and it is all about the alchemical process. And I actually had an incredible insight the other day as I was making a piece that I thought was unrelated. I was creating a painting to honor the goddess Inanna, who has been just like showing up in my sphere all over the place. I didn't really know why, but as soon as I started creating this piece, it was really clear to me that it actually wanted to be a part of this alchemy set. And that got my wheels turning. And I'm now feeling like I'm going to represent each step of alchemy with just kind of like the archetypal symbols, the traditional symbols, but also with a piece that correlates to a goddess, and another piece that I think correlates to like another mythological figure. I'm not really sure on that yet, but yeah, I kind of want to tie in the goddess energy with the alchemical journey, because so many of these myths are so alchemical, like Anana, for example, she literally goes through the seven gates of the underworld and comes back to heaven a more integrated being, right? Um, and I just love that so much. And I just feel like there are like hundreds of goddesses that have, this alchemical nature to them that I want to explore. So I'm really excited about that. And I just released a Patreon account, and people can find me there and support my work there. That's also where I am going to be teaching classes. And there's another tier where you get a print every month from me that honors the sun's journey into, the current sign of the zodiac and the new moon of the month. Um, and yeah, that has been an incredible journey for me. I'm really, really enjoying it.
That it seems like you're busy in your creative element, and it's so important to hone in on those nuances and those nudges that you're getting, because the magic really is on the other side of that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for me, like I said, I need to be alone and in quiet in order to hear those nudges.
Mhm. It's
You
like
know.
create your own little forest.
Exactly. That's actually something I'm weaving into my Patreon is creative space sessions. So people can come, but it's not necessarily to engage with each other. It's really just to devote an hour of time to whatever it is your creative spirit wants to explore.
Mm.
And I know how valuable that time is. And I know that a lot of people have a really hard time not getting distracted, and really just devoting time to that. So yeah, that's something I'm offering there that I feel is really, really valuable.
I know I could benefit from that. It's a But one of
Oh,
my
yeah.
struggles at the moment is to shut off, and I know it's so important for my own well-being, because I know that, and like you, when you recharge, you're able to serve more and give more to others, but you
Oh,
cannot
yeah.
give from an empty cup, literally.
Absolutely. And something about the creative process actually gives you more energy, you know, like when you're creating, it's like you're generating more energy to create more.
Yeah.
And it's incredible, you know. I think that's actually how I'm able to do as much as I do. Because I shock myself sometimes with how like productive I am in my creativity. You know, it's really incredible. And it's because I give myself ample time to do that.
Course. It becomes addictive on a personal note, and then from a community perspective, it becomes a little bit contagious. Like me hearing
Mm.
that from you, I go, well, I want a part of that, and in my own realm, from my own perspective, and in my own world. So that's it's so needed, and I guess the way forward is to go back to retreat.
Yeah, exactly. I love that.
Yeah. I really genuinely, Anna, thank you for your time. The listeners can find you on Instagram. Was it Anna's Breath?
Yeah, Anna's Breath. I also have a website that's annasbreath.art. And you can sign up for my email list if you want to hear more from me. And like I said, I'm on Patreon also, just at Anna's Breath.
Amazing. So be sure to check out Anna's work. It's going to be worth your while because it's so, like I said, so receptive, and so it'll just take you on your own inner journey to what each process and each element and archetype means to you. So thank you,
Mm.
Anna, for your time and your energy, and I wish you all the best in your creative endeavors, and I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more from you and your work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really, really nice.
Thank you. Wherever you're listening from, if you can give us a review and a 5-star rating, that would be so helpful in supporting this podcast. If this episode lights you up and inspires you, then please make sure that you share this podcast and make sure that you tag me on Instagram. I am beyond grateful and so blessed to call this work. It just means so much. Together, we will learn and grow. Staying anchored in your heart means staying anchored to your humanity. All my love, Natasha.